What's up, everybody? Back in week 5 again to talk about our survivor picks for the week. But we've got an exciting announcement. A lot of us got knocked out in the first few weeks of Survivor, so I'm starting my own league, run through a third party app, payments through a third party app that starts in week 5 of Survivor. Only $5 entry just to keep it low stakes for all the listeners. We've gotten 27 entries so far. If you'd like to, go ahead and join yourself. Once you do join, you can use the referral code and get a free $10. So essentially, you can do 2 entries here and pay for this Survivor League for free just by signing up and get in with the action with all the rest of the viewers that are joining. That Survivor League promo aside, let's look at the potential picks from top to bottom, favorite to least favorite of the most favored 9 teams this week. It's a really tough week in week 5 as you get the Niners here only being 7.5-point favorites. That is the largest spread of the week, and you got to go really far down to a couple of home teams in a London game where they're only favored by 2.5, 3 points there. That being one of the top 9 best spreads this week. So tough looks in week 5, and we'll get to each of the games soon enough. Before we do, again, always my advice to look at the schedules for each of these teams, look ahead at least the next few weeks, if not the entire season, to try to plan out when else you could pick these teams realistically, and in which other teams in that given week would you pick? Are there better options? Are there other good alternatives to a team? Something that you should always be considering. But with that, let's kick it off with the teams we want to proceed with caution with. And you're going to get a team that, if you watched last week, it's going to pop up again. No surprise here that it is the Chiefs, who I talked about last week, who came out sluggish against a Chargers team. They're even weaker this week now, no pun intended, against the Saints here, as Rashee Rice, their number 1 receiver and one of the more tenured receivers, despite being a second-year player on this roster for the Chiefs team. He's out for the foreseeable future with a nasty knee injury suffered on an interception thrown by Pat Mahomes. But they got the Saints coming into town, who are 2-2, coming off 2 straight losses there. And I think, that's definitely something to take into account. This is a Saints team that came out hot and really had some great play calling from new-time offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, and a revitalized offense with, Derek Carr still there, Alvin Kamara still there, Chris Olave picking up his duty and his slack as a now soon-to-be veteran wide receiver, at least a few years in the league, playing like it, and then Rashid Shaheed with the speedster up the field, really playing well. The Chiefs, on the other hand, again, they got that injury with Rashee Rice. Isaiah Pacheco at running back is out. Travis Kelce at tight end is slowed down a bit. He had a pretty decent game against the Chargers, but it hasn't had a touchdown all year. Hasn't looked like the great Travis Kelce of past. So it's just concerning for me that, it's really going to be Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes against the world here, against a high-flying Saints offense. Definitely could get into trouble. It's going to be a defensive game for the Chiefs. They're going to want to stay in this, and really a masterclass from Patrick Mahomes in picking apart a defense if the Chiefs are going to win this game by more than a field goal here. I definitely think the Saints have a real shot, again, because of their ability to push the ball downfield, to break open the big play, and to run the ball behind. Alvin Kamara has been playing very well, and a revamped offensive line that they've built up with a lot of first-round draft picks and through free agency here. So Saints here hungry for a win after a couple losses, and the Chiefs 4-0. A little high on their horses here, down to the dumps in terms of injuries. I think it's a spot where you could see them fall. Wanted to talk about another team on the proceed with caution list here, and I think I could talk about all the teams that are favored by 3.5 points or less. Heck, you can even throw the Bears in there at -4. There's reasons to be cautious about all those games, but the one that I really want to highlight here, and the one I think is going to get some people, is this Vikings Jets game that's happening in London. I think just knowing what we all know and what we've all seen, the Vikings look incredibly legitimate, and the Jets have had some pretty bad games, especially this last week, dropping it against the Broncos at home. And I think, again, we can all agree on that, and that's why it's so peculiar that the Vikings I know it's on a neutral site, but the Vikings only being 2.5 points favorites here, less than a field goal. I think we all would have expected the Vikings to have been favored much more in this game against the Jets. I think we all would have thought that the Vikings had a better than 60% chance to win this game against the Jets. But yet, I find it being much closer than I would have thought in my mind. I think the reason for this, if any, is because the Jets have such a good secondary and a great lockdown corner in Sauce Gardner. Now, you're not going to be able to lock down Justin Jefferson, the premier wide receiver in this game, but certainly they have the capability to slow him down. And again, that Jets front seven, just like the secondary, is pretty dominant and good at controlling the run. Now, what's going to happen for the Jets is they're going to need to put up 9 points if they're going to want to beat the Vikings. And that's something I think they certainly can do. While the Vikings are led by one of the best defensive coordinators in this league in Brian Flores, who I mention just about every week, and he continues to deserve this praise. The personnel-wise, the Vikings aren't all the way there. They definitely have holes. They're just playing like a complete unit, and sometimes that's better. But I think they could get exposed against an Aaron Rodgers defense and a solid Jets offensive line that was built up in the free agency this year. Breece Hall and even Braylon Allen at running back, kind of a dynamic duo back there, and then Garrett Wilson at wide receiver. Again, there's not a ton from what we've seen that makes me say, ooh, the Vikings are going to drop this game against the Jets. But because the spread is so close, and I think much closer than we all thought, it seems like a very enticing trap game for a lot of bettors and a lot of survivor pickers at that. And so I'm very wary of this game and can definitely see the Jets winning this one. As they're coming off a loss. You don't see Aaron Rodgers coming off losses and losing back-to-back games very often in his career. You also have the Vikings, much like the Chiefs, that are undefeated and could be a little bit higher on their horse. Who knows if that has anything to do with it? I certainly read into it. Now, it doesn't account for everything, but it definitely matters. And again, the Vikings game is one that I am looking out for. I think the best pick this week, much like the best pick last week, is the 49ers here. I don't like that they're playing a divisional game, but the Cardinals just laid an egg, even at home against the Commanders, and let up a lot of points at that. Now, I know Jaden Daniels has been spectacular, but that Commanders defense has nothing to write home about, and the Cardinals weren't able to muster up that many points. I hate to think what they can do and what they will do against the 49ers in terms of a offensive output standpoint. Now, you can't pick teams and choose games with that same mentality, but I think it's showing that the Cardinals offense is not up to par as I thought they would be this year, with Kyler Murray taking a step up potentially with a great rookie wide receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, a tight end, who seemed to emerge at the second half of last year. Couple that with the fact that I don't think the 49ers, after having lost against the divisional opponent Rams, will lose another one this quickly to a lesser divisional opponent. I don't think they're going to be looking past this game, especially given their record at 2-2. I think a mark that a lot of people would have been surprised about if you told them that before the season started. I don't expect the Niners to drop below 500 against this game against the Cardinals, and I think it's a great spot for them. The dominant defense against a suboptimal offense right now in the Cardinals, who just aren't clicking with all the pieces that they have. And then on the flip side, they got a good offense. They're getting some guys back that were unhealthy, like Deebo Samuel especially, against the Cardinals defense that has let up a lot of points, 30 plus multiple times this season. I would expect to see 30 points out of the 49ers of this game. Talk about great picks. Here's some good value here. You get the Bears at home, longest home winning streak, active home winning streak right now in the NFL. They're not going to be favored much this season, certainly not -4, even at home against the Panthers. I think it's a lot of value here. And what makes me more confident than I otherwise would be in this pick is the fact that this Bears defense is playing tremendous football. Even in the games they've lost, they've looked really good and really scary, and I think that trend is going to continue. The Panthers, under Andy Dalton, have looked really solid. They've been able to put up points. They've been able to win games against teams like the Raiders, but they also, came up against a winless and desperate Bengals team last week. But even so, they impressed me with the amount of points that they were able to put up. But that doesn't mitigate the fact that this Panthers defense, no matter what Andy Dalton is doing, is not a great defensive unit and lets up a lot of points, and that can't be masked by quarterback play. Again, like the strength of this Panthers team right now is Andy Dalton in this offense, throwing to guys like Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen. And even Chuba Hubbard is playing well at running back here, but they're going to run up against a much better Bears defense than what they experienced last week. And their suboptimal defense will be a warm welcome for Caleb Williams, the rookie quarterback for the Bears, and this offense that needs to continue taking steps forward with a lot of talented players like rookie wide receiver Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, highest paid player in Bears history, and veteran Keenan Allen. Then they also brought in DeAndre Swift at running back here, Cole Kmet at tight end. I can go on. They got a lot of pieces they can use. They haven't really been able to let them all loose yet and put up a lot of points. I think this Panthers defense is a prime opportunity for the Bears to build some momentum offensively and ride the great performance that their defense has been providing to them. This is a good spot for the Bears to get a win and go above 500. Now, I don't want to discredit Andy Dalton the way that he's playing. They definitely have a chance to win this game, the Panthers do, because of Andy Dalton's performance and heroics at quarterback. But I think, again, this Bears defense is just too much, and that's what makes it a great value play. I think my pick this week, though, is going to be the Seattle Seahawks at home against the Giants on the condition that Malik Nabers, their rookie wide receiver, is continuing to be out with a concussion. If he plays, I'm going to have to rethink my pick. But if he doesn't play, Nabers, that is, at wide receiver, this Giants offense has very little going for them. They don't have a ton of weapons to throw the ball to. They lost Saquon Barkley at running back in the offseason. I really do like the way Devin Singletary has looked, but he's not the kind of guy at running back that can carry this Giants offense. Daniel Jones, being Daniel Jones, is very prone to turnovers, and the Seahawks secondary is one of the best in the league. Certainly top 10, potentially even top 5. You wouldn't know it by the way they looked against the Lions, because the real weakness of the Seahawks team is their front seven, especially as they're dealing with injuries. The Lions only threw the ball 18 times. Now, granted, they completed 18 times, but the reason that the pass game was so open for the Lions is because they just bullied the Seahawks front seven with their offensive line and with their run game, so much so they had to commit all their resources to stopping the run, leaving a secondary very susceptible to great play calling and great throws by Jared Goff. The secondary and this defense is still the strength of the Seattle team, and they're playing a really poor offense against the Giants. You saw the Seahawks' ability to put up points. I like the way they're looking. I like Geno Smith at quarterback. DK Metcalf is still DK Metcalf, and they're really finding a way to get Jackson Smith and Jigba, the second-year wide receiver out of Ohio State, integrated in this offense and running much more complicated and in-depth route patterns than he did last year under offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. Again, I like the way the Seahawks offense is looking. You saw some big bursts from Kenneth Walker, the third at running back out of Michigan State. Zach Charbonnet being a great compliment to him, especially as a receiving back. I'm talking a lot about the Seahawks, and I can name their guys and talk about the performance they've had. You can't really do that with this Giants offense. They haven't had any flashy guys outside of Nabers making plays. They haven't had playmakers, good quarterback play, solid offense production, really all year long outside of Malik Nabers, and that's a huge concern for me if I was a Giants fan. Not a concern for me as I'm picking the Seahawks this week on the condition that wide receiver Malik Nabers is still out with a concussion. We'll have to keep an update on that. The other picks this week, you get the Packers at the Rams. I really like the Packers here, honestly, close to picking them and definitely considering them, as Jordan Love put up a lot of points against the Vikings and almost completed a miraculous second half comeback. He's not going to throw 3 interceptions every game like he did against the Vikings. He's probably not even going to throw 2 most games, and even 1 is stretching it for a quarterback of his caliber. I like the way that he's looked outside of those interceptions. You erase those, it's a much different game against the Vikings. And I really like the way this offense looks with their receivers, especially. A lot of young guys like Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed that make this Packers offense so explosive behind Matt LaFleur and his play calling there. For the Rams, you've seen their offensive woes, missing guys like Puka Nacua, who's on IR throughout their bye week, and Cooper Kupp, who's still going to be out this game here. Not able to get a lot of offense going. I think the Packers, again, they're a team. Good quarterbacks don't lose 2 games in a row. Jordan Love, I think, is a good quarterback. I don't think he loses this game. And I don't think the Rams have that good of a defense. Certainly not one good enough to stop this Packers offense. This Rams defense couldn't stop the Bears offense. I really don't think they're going to be able to stop this Packers team. I do like the Packers here. There's always a concern when you're facing a team like the Rams, who was a playoff hopeful before the season started. They only have one win, and it came against the 49ers. They're capable of pulling off an upset. So something to think about, but I still like the Packers in this situation here, given all those Rams injuries. I think a really popular pick this week is going to be the Commanders at home against the Browns, but it's not something I personally have the appetite for. I think this is, a tricky game as you're getting a Browns team that is coming off a loss against the Raiders, and I think a lot of teams are really low on them right now. And conversely, this Commanders team has looked lights out all season long with rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels having an even better start than C.J. Stroud had last year as a rookie, which was once thought as inconceivable. To have the Commanders only favored by 3.5 here and only to get a 63.6% chance to win, it's a little striking to me, and I think it should be standing out as a red flag to you that it's probably a little bit counterintuitive to what you think. You would think that the Commanders are going to steamroll the Browns. You would think that the Commanders are going to keep rolling and beat up on a Browns team that has had very little success all year, especially with quarterback Deshaun Watson really not looking like an NFL quarterback these days. So everything on paper says the Commanders is a good pick here. But something tells me the Browns have something in store for the Commanders. And really what tips me off again is this line being as close as it is. Again, home field advantage is denoted in this second to last or second to the right most column is worth 3 points in the NFL. So what Vegas is telling me and what the greatest analytical computers behind Vegas are telling me is that these two teams on a neutral site are just about even. Again, that's counterintuitive to what I think a lot of people believe, and that's why I'm staying away from this Commanders game against the Browns here. This is a game that I think is maybe not the best value, but very close to value behind the Bears, as you're getting a Broncos team who might not be favored at any point for the rest of the season, coming off a big win against the Jets. I'm not really attributing that too much to the Broncos because it's a pretty ugly game. Taking on the Raiders against a nice win against the Browns here. I think the reason this is a very scary game being a divisional opponent and being favored by so few. And again, these guys are home, so basically truly a pick 'em game here on a neutral site. I like the Broncos here because I like to see rookie quarterback Bo Nix take a slight step up here and play against one of the, if not the worst secondaries in the league with the Raiders. I think they have let up the most amount of passing yards to quarterbacks throughout this first 4 games and have the lowest rated PFF secondary coverage grade in the league. Conversely, for the Broncos, they boast the best coverage grade of any team in the league right now. Obviously, Patrick Surtain has a big part of that at cornerback, but this Broncos team, at least their secondary, is living up to some of the defensive expectations that they've had. If they can get Bo Nix going a little bit, who's shown flashes with his legs, but certainly has that connection with Courtland Sutton at wide receiver. If he can take, again, just a small step up, I think the Broncos win this game, but that does not detract from how much of a coin flip this game truly is, especially the fact that it is a divisional opponent. And the last one, again, just as scary as a game with a divisional opponent with the winless Jaguars. I think the only winless team in the league, hosting the division rival Colts after the Colts got a nice unexpected win against the Steelers. Again, this is a truly scary game as they're implying the Colts are the better team on the neutral site, which I think is no surprise. But I do think the Jaguars are going to win this game. I think a huge part of that is that they're 0-4. I think a lot of these guys are playing for pride at this point as they're not making the playoffs. The whole coaching staff has to be playing for their jobs at this point. And I do like the situation where the Colts are playing backup quarterback Joe Flacco, who was very formidable even in the twilight of his career, but you lose a lot of that explosive playmaking ability that Anthony Richardson provides. And for the Colts at running back, Jonathan Taylor has got a high ankle sprain. He's going to be coming down to a game time decision. If he does play, he's certainly going to be hampered by that injury. And my guess is he's not going to play, and they rest him for a week until he's truly healthy. So I think Jaguars have a good advantage there just from an injury perspective. But again, you saw some good flashes again from them last week against the Texans with Trevor Lawrence, looking more and more like the quarterback that they paid him to be. He's not all the way there yet, but this team fought really hard against a really good Texans team and came up just short. I think they can pull it all together, or enough of it together, to beat the Colts this week in a game of true desperation. Just one reminder, we got the Survivor League. You think you got what it takes, come join the league. It's only $5, and I put that in parentheses is because you sign up with the link, you get $10. And it's really just a free roll to play in the Survivor League against the other people that watch this channel, get some bragging rights, win some money. It's a very legitimate site and all handled by third party. I have no role or hand in the money gets received or paid out. I think it's something that everyone should consider and join because, again, it's free after you get this $10. So hope to see you there and hope you join this league. No matter what you do, good luck in week 5, and I'll see you next week.